Recording.
Okay, everybody, I have 4 o'clock, so let us begin. For starters, my name is Olivia Morris, and you are attending Learnabout Google Forms. If you have attended our Learnabouts before, this will seem familiar to you. We're going to follow the same format that we have done. If this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for choosing to attend this. I know there's a lot of demands on everyone's time these days, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and join us here. As I said, my name is Olivia, and I work for MetroNet. I recognize some of the names, so I know we have some Minnesota librarians, but I'm also guessing we have some of you from out of town. And so MetroNet, we are located in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we are a multi-county, multi-type library consortium. And what we do is we provide services to libraries of all types. So we service a multi-county area, that would be the 7-county Twin Cities metropolitan area, and then libraries of all types. So public, academic, school, and special libraries. And we service them by creating programming and events, professional development trainings. We do funding for local librarians to attend conferences, things like that. You can read more about us at our website, metrolibraries.net, if you are interested. So thank you for being here. This is a series of training seminars that we developed based on a member survey. So our member libraries told us that they wanted to know more and be taught practical information. And the Google Suite was the #1 thing people asked to learn about. And so we created this series called Learnabouts. And I have done the Google Suite, or a large portion of it, and all from a basic level. We'll be moving forward to advanced probably in 2023. I have some other things planned for this fall. So that is us and why we are here. And I hope that you will learn something today and that you will enjoy it. You can ask questions at any time in the chat or the Q&A function through Zoom. I will not be taking questions until the end, but I don't want people to forget what they were going to ask about. So if you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat, and I will scroll back and make sure we get them all the way to the beginning. It's hard to both run it and stop for questions. So I'm just going to run it straight through, and then we'll take questions at the end. So with that, let us keep going. So we covered who am I and a little bit about the Learnabout series, and the link that you will see on your screen there, metrolibraries.net/events and programs, is where you will find any future events that we have. So upcoming events, for instance, in May, we are running our final Learnabout of the spring, which will be on Google Sites. And then we're going to take the summer off. We tend to get much lower attendance throughout the summer. So then we're going to be back in the fall, and I've tentatively scheduled September and October already. I'll talk about those more at the end of today's presentation. And we do record these. So we are recording this one, and those are linked on our MetroNet YouTube channel. And the link to that can also be found on the events and program page. So there we go. Oh, also these slides that I have up here, which you are only going to be seeing for a few more moments, I have available to you as well. So you'll be able to access all of these links. So I'll show you that link to the slide deck here shortly. So what to expect today? I found that when I'm doing these, it tends to work best for me to just do a live tour of the platform that we are using. So today it's Google Forms. So we're going to walk through it. I'm going to show you some of the things that we can do. And then as far as tips and tricks go, I like to point out some, but with Google Forms, it's a very basic program. So I didn't find a lot of tips and tricks to share with you this time, just a couple that I will make sure and touch upon. So moving forward, as always, I find that Google does a really good job with their support pages. So they're getting started. So I have linked that in here, and I'm just going to very briefly show you what that looks like. So you can come in here if I don't quite explain it as fully as you'd like, or if you have additional questions that I didn't touch upon, you can usually find what you're looking for in here. So there's a cheat sheet with a quick reference, a bunch of productivity guides to help you use it better. And then if you're looking for basics, cheat sheets, it's all linked up here. If you just wanted you've never used forms in your entire life and you're not even entirely certain why you signed up for this Learnabout, you can come here to getting started with forms, and then also with quizzes, which I'm going to touch upon a little bit today. So there's really a lot of information packed in here. It'd be a good thing to bookmark if you are trying to become more proficient with forms. So that is that. And then we are going to do the tour. And then I also mentioned that I have this slide deck linked. So it is bit.ly/learnabout and that's all one word there. You can see it on the screen right there. So, I clicked the wrong screen. There we go. So bit.ly Learnabout forms, you will find this slide deck and you are welcome to follow along. Although, like I said, I'm going to leave the slide deck now and head out to do the live tour. But if you want these access to these links or a reminder for later, you are more than welcome to have access to the slide deck. So you also see that I have on there the quick start. And this is something that I did as the very first tip and trick that I did in the first Learnabout, which was Google Docs. And it's a lot of people don't know that in order to create anything that's in the G Suite, so Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Forms, Google Slides, all you need to do is start in your web browser and type in the name of the one you want. So in this case, forms.new and hit enter and you will automatically start a new form. You can also, of course, navigate to your, you can see at the bottom of my screen there, I have Google Drive and then Google Docs as my links. So you could do it that way, but there's just no way it's not faster to do it this way. So forms.new, and you have them on here and it takes you into a brand new form. So this is the basic template for a form. So Google Forms can be used for a number of things. What do I use them for? I primarily use them for surveys. So we do a lot of events and programs, and we like to get feedback from our member libraries. So I will create a brief survey just to find out what people thought of what we did. Or maybe we have attendance for a particular event and I will create a sign-in sheet through Google Forms and send them the link and they put their name and email address in there or whatever information that I need. So I will use them for that. I know that they're used quite often for like exit tickets. So if you need final feedback before someone leaves the room, that's a good way to do it. I'm trying to think of other most commonly used. And then I know a lot of teachers who use them for quizzes because you can turn this into an actual quiz or test as well, which I will be touching on shortly. So this is your basic Google form. And I'm just going to walk you through all the different parts. And please remember, I did designate this as a basic tutorial. So if you were here looking for the advanced stuff, I'm sorry, we're not going to cover that today. We will be eventually doing an advanced Google Forms, but today is just the simple basics. So in the upper left-hand corner, we have Forms Home. So if you want to create another form, start another new form, you're just looking for more information, I'm just going to click on it so you can see what it looks like. So this is the Forms Basic. It's going to take you into my drive for forms and show you all of the forms that I have currently. And as you can see, I use forms a lot. I love forms. I love how easy it is to use. I love that it doesn't require 8 million steps to create something simple. For instance, before I started at my current job at Metronet, they were big fans of SurveyMonkey. And probably a lot of you use SurveyMonkey, and SurveyMonkey does a really great job at what it does. However, I find it to be about 10 steps too complicated every time I use it. Whereas Google Forms might not do as much, but it is not as complicated. It's quick and it's easy, and that's usually what I'm looking for. I don't want to spend 8 days to create a sign-up sheet on. I just want to real quickly pound something out that I can let my users use. So the next section next to Forms Home, this is where you can put in your title. So we're going to call this one Demo for Learnabout, because why wouldn't I? And I will keep that in there. So it will save under that name. It is automatically saving. If you have not seen any of these others and you are new to the Google Suite, Google automatically saves for you. You do not have to click save. They do it constantly. They're constantly updating the savings so that you won't lose information if your machine should crash, but you don't ever have to click that button. So that is a nice feature that the Google Suite offers. You'll notice once I put a name in there, then I got this little folder. And so if you do the forms.new, it just opens a new one, but you need to put it someplace. Otherwise, where is it, right? How do you find it? And that's what the little folder is for. So now I could move this, I can click and move it into my Google Drive, wherever I want to have it. And as you can see, pretty heavy Google Drive folders. We use it extensively at my job. So I could definitely save it in here if I wanted to. I am not going to, because after I'm done with this for you all today, I can't see any reason I would need it. I'll create a new one the next time I do another demo. And then the star, you can do that if you want it saved in your Google Drive and starred as an important. So if it's something that you're creating that you know you're going to be working on or collaborating on for the near future, or if it's something that you want to be saved because you know that you'll be permanently going back to it, starring it's a good idea. Then it will actually be in its own starred folder in your drive so that you can find it more quickly. You don't have to search for it or put it in a place that you can find it. The star helps you, grab it quickly. And then this is your changes and updates. And you can see where it says all changes are saved in Drive there. So to the right, I'm just going to keep going across the top here. This is your add-ons tab. This one we're not going to spend a lot of time in. Add-ons are more of advanced features. There's a lot of things. And if you were with us last month when we did Chrome extensions. So Chrome extensions are add-ons that you can add to your Chrome browser to make it more, to kind of customize it to the way you want it to be. You can also do that within forms. So there are add-ons that are specific to forms. So you can customize it to look the way you want or to create a certain template or whatever it is that you're looking to do. It pretty much the idea exists, I would imagine. So that's what the add-ons are for. And like I said, we won't spend time with that today because it's more of advanced features. But if you are looking for information about add-ons, let me know that, and I will happily put together an entire advanced add-ons tab for Google Forms. I'd be happy to do that for you in the future. So customize theme. This is where you do your design. So you can put a header image up there, and then I think I have an image and I can just stick in up here so you guys can see what that looks like. Or we can just use a theme from this. Let's use this one that looks like multicolored Mike and Ike's. I'm not sure what it was meant to be, but that's what it looked like to me. And then the insert was hidden behind that Zoom thing, which I will put down, and boom. And now I have got my multicolored Mike and Ike's as my header. My image is uploaded, and then it matches a theme to the colors that it's seeing up there. This is all customizable. If you don't care for these particular colors and you'd rather it look like something else, you can go ahead and change all of that. You can change the font that you have in there. Pretty much anything. I could take that header out, start with something new, but there's a lot of options within the themes. So if you want it to look differently or pretty or whatever, you can. If you're just doing a basic, I want to get this out there, you don't have to do any of this. It will just default to the normal white background, black text, and then the purple buttons, because that's the color that Google has chosen for forms. So the little I is the preview button. So you can at any time click that and it will give you basically the live look at your form. So this is what it will look like to people who are filling it out. Okay. So it's a good thing to check every now and again, especially if you are doing skip logic or branch logic or anything a little more complicated than the basics. You might want to just check it as you go to make sure it looks the way you want it to look. You have your undo and redo buttons, the send button, which I will click on. Send is a button that you will see on all of the Google products. They all have that send feature. And so this gives you the ability to send out this form via email, the link, or to embed it as an HTML. So if you have a work or school website and you want to have a poll on there, that's something that you could do very easily here. You could even just do a 1-question poll on your Google form and then embed that into your website so that people can access it. So a lot of different things that it can do. You can also, this is also where you can choose to add collaborators. Again, this bar is in the way. The add collaborators, selecting that gives you the ability to name specific people. And if you name them as collaborators, then they come up as editors. So if you're sharing this with someone and you want them to work on it with you, this is where you can do that. It also defaults and gives you the link for restrictions and permissions. Now, as you will notice, this says it is currently restricted. Back on the main page, it says right here in the main center there, this form is automatically collecting emails from MetroNet users and changing settings. So my organization owns a Google Suite and my account is through that. So the permissions are preset, but I can change that at any time by clicking that button that says change settings. I'm going to go back one screen. I'm not going to go back one screen. One more time. Went back one too far. What I wanted to be on was this main tab, which has questions, but I'll get to that in 1 second. So when you're adding collaborators, it gives you that same ability to change the restriction permissions here. And as with most Google products, you have the ability to do that in multiple locations. There's also a settings feature up here in under your Add Collaborators. So letting you know what your editors and viewers can do. So if you want your editors to be able to change permissions to allow more people or fewer people, you can leave that in there. And then what you can allow your viewers and commenters to do as well. So a lot of things that are in here. For my restrictions on this particular one, I do not want it to only be people with the link. I'm going to actually, and not only people with my organization, I'm going to actually change this to anyone with the link. So there we go. And so anyone then that has access to this link would have the ability to go in and edit this document. So that is just a couple of ways that you can change that under the send feature. To the right of that, where it says more in the little vertical 3 dots there, you will now see the options to make a copy, to delete this whole thing if it's just not what you wanted to do, to create a pre-filled link, print. Again, here's your Add Collaborators, script editor if you're doing HTML, and then again with your add-ons. So as with almost every Google product, I'm trying to think if there's an exception, and I don't know every single Google product that well, so I'm going to stick with almost every Google product. They have multiple ways to access the same information to make it easier. If you cannot think, oh, where did she tell me I could add collaborators? Click on something. You'll probably find it because it's in multiple places to make it easier on all of you. And then to the right of that is my picture, which tells you it's my Google account, but I could do that to switch Google accounts. So if you have a personal and professional, etc., you can switch those here depending on what account you need to be in to create this. So that's the top row. This next row down here, you'll see there are 3 tabs: questions, responses, and settings. So I usually, when I am creating a Google form, I usually always start in settings. Before I do the background or things like that, I usually always start with settings. And that is because I want it to start the way I need it to be. So the first thing that is on the settings is make this a quiz. So if you are a teacher and you're looking to create a test, this is not something I'm going to spend a ton of time on, but I do want to show you what it looks like. It is, as it should be, very easy to do. So if you're not familiar and you've never tried it before, try it. I promise you won't have much trouble. It's very simple to follow along. So you select this to turn it on, make it a quiz, and now you have some options. Do you want to release the grades immediately after each submission? So as soon as the student sends it in, Google will tabulate the results according to what you have set up and give the student an immediate grade, or do you want to manually review them? So if you are doing things that are questions and then maybe an essay at the end or a short answer paragraph, and you want to be able to review them to get the address, you can select this later. Or if it's just a straight quick pop quiz, 10 questions, and you want them graded, you can do it immediately. So settings, do you want them to be able to see which they had answered incorrectly? That's usually helpful if you are going to review them. They can see the correct answer after the grades are released, point values for each question, and then default point values for each new question. So you can set what the point value will be. So if it's 1 per, and then they're going to get 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, etc. But you can set that to whatever you want to make it suit your particular assignment. So you can see here that you can go up and down. You can also type in that box. So if you want it to be 15 points, you can do that rather than clicking that little arrow 15 times. So that is for making this a quiz. Now I am going to turn that off because during this demo, one more thing. Once I made it a quiz, you'll notice right up here, it said total points 0. So as I was building it as a quiz, it gives you some more features that you can do. But again, I'm going to stick with more as a form rather than a quiz. So I'm not going to build this as a quiz. I'm going to turn that off. So it is no longer listed as a quiz. So then below that, the responses, manage how they're collected. And this is usually where I begin unless I am creating a quiz. But the first thing is collect email addresses. I have that set to default on, and I do leave it on for everything. A couple of times I had turned it off because I thought, well, I'll let them put in an email address, because oftentimes people will log in to do this and it collects their local email address that they're using, and it does their whatever Gmail account they're logged in with. but it turns out they wanted to use a different account and then they can't change that. So I've let them do it. And then I found that that leads to nothing but problems, because invariably somebody, and usually it's more than one somebody, will type their email address wrong. And then you end up with an issue. So I usually just leave the collect email addresses on. If I think it's the kind of thing where they're going to want to use a different account, I will put in, do you have an alternate email address, as a question, and let them decide which one they can do. And then you can even set up which email address would you prefer, first or second, or etc. So there are plenty of ways to get around with that, but it saves you the hassle of the email address problem. So sending the responders. So if you were to fill out my form, do you want a copy of your response? Sometimes this is helpful. For instance, here in Minnesota, I have often been a judge for the local Minnesota Book Awards. And when I do that, I have to fill out an application each year, and they ask me a bunch of questions about books and my reading style and my reading preference. And I spend a lot of time developing it. And then at the end, they send me a review with the entire Google form, including my responses, which makes it helpful for me when I apply again the next year. And I'm trying to think, what did I say last year that they clearly liked because they picked me to be a judge? So that's just an example of when that can be handy. If I'm just doing a quick survey, I don't usually bother with that. It really depends on the purpose of your form, if you want them to see a response. But if you do click on for this one, when requested or always are your options, they will get basically a full copy of the Google form. So every question and what their response was to each question. Allowing response editing gives them the ability to change their response after they submit. So once they've sent it to you, that response will be logged. But if they're allowed to edit, they can go back in and change an answer. Again, depending upon the purpose of your form, you can decide whether or not you think that is appropriate. I typically don't. What I do instead is I do not limit them to one response. So for instance, the next thing down here, require sign-in, restrict users in Metronet and its trusted organizations. I would turn that off in this case, because I don't want to only let my organization do it. I would let anyone who has the link do it. And then I would not limit them to one response. So instead of allowing them to edit, they can go back in and refill out the form if they want to change their answers. That way I can see both responses. Sometimes that's helpful depending on what it is that I am doing. So the next thing below that is presentation. And so the presentation on the form, show the progress bar. If you have a very long form, I would usually recommend yes. I have found that if it's a long form, if you don't have the progress bar on there, people will get frustrated and bored in the middle and they'll quit doing your form. If it's a long form and it says you're at question 7 out of 19, people will keep going. They might still be bored and frustrated, but if they know the end is in sight, they don't usually quit. That's just my personal experience. Your mileage may vary, but the progress bar is occasionally helpful. I've never found a reason that shuffle question order would be good in a form. Sometimes in a quiz, often in a quiz, if you are doing that, you may want to shuffle your question order so that the students are getting in different orders. I'm sure you can all infer why from that. But as far as a form goes, I can't think of any reason I would want them to be shuffled in order. I like them to be in a specific order. Confirmation message. So after they're done, and you've all probably taken a Google form, so at the end you get a little box and it usually says this: your response has been recorded. But you do have the ability to edit that and make it say whatever you want. When I send a form, it says something to the effect of, thank you for taking the time to fill out this form. Yes, I'm really typing this in there. And here's why, because I also include this line. If you have further questions, please email, I do capitalize my own name, and then I put my email address in here. This is my real email address, and I'm typing it in so you can all see that, because if you guys have questions, you are welcome to hit me with them at any time. I would love for you, if you have follow-up questions or comments about this presentation, please send me an email. You can see my address right there. And I always give it out at the end of the presentation anyway, so I see no reason not to include it right here. But I always put that on mine. So it says this: thank you. I like to thank them, because if you've ever sent out a survey and gotten back like 4 responses and you just get so frustrated, I totally get that. I always fill out surveys. If you need someone to fill out a survey, send it to me. I will fill it out. I always do it because I get frustrated when people don't do mine. So I make sure and do everyone else's. But I find thanking them is polite, and I like to take that opportunity to include my name and my email in there, just so If there is, sometimes something pops up, somebody's reading the form and they're going, huh, I never thought about this more. And they have further questions or something that's only tangentially related and they want more feedback. It's just a good way to give them a chance to get in touch with me. And then the show link to submit another response if you are allowing them to do that. So, and then below this message, then it will say, want to fill out this form again? And as a link, they can do that. And again, if you don't want them, if it's one and done for you, you can turn that off right here. So there's a results summary that can be sent to the people who fills it out if you want them to have that information. If not, don't worry about it. That comes default to off. And then disable autosave for all respondents. I'm still trying to figure out why you'd think they would think that would be a good idea. I think it's good that they give you the option, but when someone's filling out the form, as with all Google products, it's automatically saving. So if you have paragraphs or essays in your form that they're going to be typing a long time, it's saving as they go. So if their computer crashes in the middle, they're not going to lose that information. I don't know why you would want to turn that off, but there may be a reason that I'm just not thinking about because I don't use the form for that particular thing. So again, depending on your own use. So that's the majority of the settings. The last thing down here is defaults. So if you want to set up your defaults, so collecting email addresses by default, you can have that in here. And same with some of the questions. So making them required. If you want to make every question on your form required, you can set that here and then you don't have to do it. I don't like that because I feel like I always like to ask a specific yes or no or a rating and then give them an option to give me more information, which I don't like to be required because sometimes people don't have anything else that they want to share. So again, depending on your form usage. And that's settings. I know that seems like a lot, but it's actually pretty straightforward because when I do this, I come in, I usually make sure this is on, the collect email addresses. Am I going to allow them to edit? And then I change whether or not it's Metronet and the response limiting. Sometimes I'll flip on the progress bar, but that's about it. I don't go through every single one. I only do a couple of the settings and then I'm done. And then I'm flipping back to the questions tab to build my form. The other tab on here is the responses. Obviously, we don't have any yet because I don't have my form built and I have not published it. So no one has access to this form yet. But what is in here is the accepting responses on and off tab. So after your form has been open for a certain period of time, if you don't want anyone to be able to access it further, you can shut it off. And then if somebody tries to access your form, they won't be able to. And of course, the ability to send this as a spreadsheet. So any responses that you get can be tabulated into a spreadsheet, which gives you more flexibility and functionality with controlling your responses. So if you're doing a survey, you'll want to be able to tabulate those answers. So that those things will remain in here regardless, but your forms will start to populate. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. We have, just from giving this a title, giving the platform a title, it carried that title down in here to my my form itself. Obviously, if I didn't want it to be called that, I could change it to something else. You can also do a description. And if I'm doing a survey, I would usually take this opportunity to type a description in there. This survey is for Metronet to help us to decide what our members would like to learn more about, was the most recent one that I did for our member survey. Something to that effect. Please fill this out and take the time to answer thoughtfully so that we can provide you with the best possible opportunities, etc. So whatever it is that you can do in there, and then comes the collecting email part. And then here we have our untitled question. So right here, there is this little 6-dot thing. This is how you would move your questions around after the fact. If you're typing them in and realize that you put them in the wrong order, they make more sense in a different order, you can use this to drag them around. It doesn't do us a lot of good when I only have the one question in there. So I will go ahead and add. So now there are 2. And you can see how easily I can drag them around to be in a different order if I want to. So with the questions, if you start immediately typing, like not worrying about any other setting on here, I start immediately typing. So what is your favorite color? And I hit that and put that in there. As soon as I did that, Google Forms, you'll notice that there were some changes on the screen. Google Forms is trying to determine what kind of question I am answering. So they are pre-selecting my answer, the responses for my answer. So it changed it to short answer. to give me the ability to type in the color. But maybe I didn't want that. Maybe what I actually wanted was multiple choice. I wanted to give people the ability, but I'm going to limit the choices that they can have. I don't want them to be able to pick from all the colors. I only want them to pick between red. We're going to add another option here, black, and just for fun, we'll say chartreuse. Why not, right? There we go. So those are the only colors you can now pick from is red, black, and chartreuse for your favorite color. So it was obviously not thinking that I wanted to do this, but it's very easy to change, as you can see, and easy to create these forms. So looking across here, here's where you put in the question, which you can edit or change the wording of at any time. Here is where you can insert an image. So if you're doing a quiz for school and you want to include an image and ask a question about the image, where does this picture originate? I can't think of it. I know I did a quiz once for a class I was teaching on copyright, and I would put a picture of a document or a piece of created work in there and then ask them questions about it that pertain to the copyright. Things we had learned about that in class where I had used that exact image to explain to them the different parts of the copyright, and then I would put it in there and ask them questions based on that. So you could certainly do that as well. To the right of that is the drop down. These are all of the different answer types that you can come up with. Short answer, paragraph. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. You can all read. So you can see that. So there are different options. Like I said, they will guess and try to figure out what it is you want based on the way that you phrase your question. So if I said, instead of what is your favorite color, rank these colors. And then I could change it to a linear scale of 1 to 5. And then I could do red to black. And you could rank them according to the color schemes. So you can change this at any time to set up whatever type of question that you want. And then these give you the ability to populate. So here's your checkbox. You can add another option anytime. I'm just clicking where it says add option. And as soon as I do, it's giving me more options. Obviously, I don't want to rank them if I'm doing checkboxes. So select all the colors you love. And then I could list the question and allow them to select multiple colors in there. You can also, as you see, once I have option, to the left, there's the ability to change the order. So if you don't like the order that you put your colors in, instead of deleting them out and retyping them, you can just move them around. You can also add an image. So if you don't think that people know what chartreuse looks like, you can go ahead and put an image of something chartreuse in there or whatever it is that you're doing with it. You want to get rid of an option. Turns out it doesn't quite work for you. It's just a real quick X right there and it goes away. And then there's always the option to add other. So if you're giving them specific options, you can say other, and then it will give you that with a form so that they can type in, no, I don't like red, black, or chartreuse. Instead, I like violet, kind of thing. So a lot of different options on how you set up your questions. So depending on what you're typing, and then what kind of question that you are trying to create. So a drop-down menu gives you a few different options there. So you can upload a file. So the file upload is if you have, I'm trying to think of a good example. If you want to use this as maybe you're a small business and you want to use this for a job submission. So you want them to be able to add their resume. You can give them the ability to upload a file into, so it will say, please upload your resume, and then here's the file, and then you can put that in there. So I'm going to cancel that and not put that one in there. Multiple choice grid. So if you want them to select from multiple rows or columns, I mean, you all know what a grid looks like. You can do that. So you can make these more complicated than it appears just by looking at it. There is a lot of complexity that is built in, but they come at it in a very straightforward manner. It gives you the ability to create these fairly simply and straightforwardly. Down along the bottom here, we have the ability to duplicate. So if you were going to do the same question and just slight variations, you can set up the first one and then just duplicate it as many times as you need, and then just change the 1 word or 2 words in your question, or the answers, if you're doing multiple different kinds of answers, whatever works for you. Sometimes it's just easier to do it that way. So that's the option. You can also get rid of a question if it just, the whole thing just didn't go the way you want, or it turns out you want to change the focus of the survey, or whatever you thought of. Whatever works for you. Sometimes the questions don't work anymore. Take it out. Maybe you did a copy of a previous survey and it has a question that's useless to you in the new survey. You just want to get rid of it and keep the others the same. Requiring a response. This is asking for each row because I have the multiple choice grid. If I didn't have that and I just had plain multiple choice, then it's just basic required. And if I turn that on, then it will not allow them to go to the next question. Actually, it will not allow them to end the survey. They'll be able to go down and do other questions, but they cannot end the survey until they have given a response in every required question. And then this little 3-dot multiple options gives you a couple different, excuse me, I'm talking a lot of dry mouth here. So, so it can show a description. So if you need to give a description for your question to explain it a little more further, you can add that ability in there. And then you can shuffle the option order. So if you are doing something and all of your answers are going to be true, false, I don't know, but you don't want them to be true, false, I don't know every time, because then people might just start randomly clicking without reading the questions. Shuffle the option order so that it changes up the answers. You can do that. And then the last one is go to section based on answer, which I will come back to just in a moment, okay? All right, so that covers everything in a question box. I cannot believe it is 4:37 already. I feel like I'm talking really fast too, so hopefully I'm not going too fast for all of you. And please remember, this is being recorded, so you can go back and watch it again. And you have my email address. So you can email me with follow-up questions at any time. Along the right here, this is the main toolbar for creating questions. And as you move through your form, you'll notice it moves with you. Our form is not very long right now, so it's not doing a whole lot of movement, but it does move with you as you go. So the more questions I create, the longer the form gets. This little toolbar will keep going as you're going through it. And on here, the top thing is to add a question. So I'm going to go ahead and hit another one so that we now have 3 questions. Here is the ability to import questions. So if you have a quiz that is set up in, here's from different forms, you can do it from, I haven't previously picked anything. You used to be able to do it from Google Docs from here, but I am not seeing that ability at the moment, which could be a change that they have created, or else that was an add-on that I was using before and I cleared all my add-ons out. So that could have been why. I'm going to assume actually, now that I'm talking it through out loud, that was why. So if you have your questions tabulated for your quiz in a Google form, there is an add-on available that you can do that. So then it will give you the ability to import a Google form, and then it will reformat. Excuse me, I said that wrong. It will give you the ability to import your Google Doc, and it will reformat the document as a form. So, but that does require an add-on. From here, it's from another form. So if someone has sent you a form and you're like, oh, this is fantastic, this is exactly what I want my survey to look like. As long as you have that in your Google Drive, you can go ahead and import their form and then just modify it for your own use. So that is what the import feature does. Here is the ability to add titles and descriptions. So if you want to title each question and give it a description, you can absolutely do that there. More image abilities to add images. You can add video. So if you wanted to play a short video and then you can ask questions about the video, you can do that. Excuse me. And then last but not least is the adding of a section. So the adding of a section deals with if you have headings, maybe you're doing an in-depth survey and you want to do, the first part is demographics. So, you know, where you're from, perhaps your educational background, whether or not you work in a library or in an educational setting, if that's the sort of thing that you're doing, age or experience working, et cetera, like that. And then the next one is maybe opinions. And the final one is whatever it is. You can set up different sections for your form and it will run through them So as like a separate page. So page 1 is your demographics, and it'll have all your demographics question on there. And then when you click next, it'll give you the section header for opinion polls. And then you ask, they fill out all their opinions. And the third one is whatever it is. So you can create your different sections when you're doing this. And then that is all in the main toolbar. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is skip logic, or branch logic, it is sometimes called. I've normally heard it called skip logic, but I've noticed when I look on the internet for information about it, I see branch logic a lot. So that maybe that's a regional thing. I'm not sure. But either one of those, if you've heard of them, that is when you're answering questions that only pertain to you. So if you've ever seen a question that says, if you're taking a survey or a form and it says, do you do this? Yes or no? And then it says, if no, skip to question 5. You can actually set up that is called skip logic or branch logic. You can set up your form to do that. And that is based on, that's using this right here, the go to section based on answer. So you can create your own skip logic in Google Forms. It's not very complicated. It just requires a tiny bit of forethought on your part. So what you need to do is you need to create a section. So now we have at the top, section 1 of 2. Just by clicking that add a section button, it automatically separated into 2 sections. Section 1 is the intro, the demo, the email, and then the colors that you love, and this other question that I have yet to do. Section 2, which does not have a title, but I can give it a title and we can call it, part 2. Yep, I put a lot of thought into that title. I sure did. So that one's gonna be part 2, and then we have another question down here. Then when I'm up here and I select all the colors that you love, and now I can say go to section based on answer. Once I do that, for this particular one, and if you remember, these were going to be red, black, and this was going to be chartreuse, but I don't want to type that again because I did it the first time, so I'm just going to call it white this time. And now we have the same options to add the image or to delete, but now we have this new option of continue to the next section, go to section 1, go to section 2, or submit the form. So depending upon where you want these answers to take them, if they choose red, and then you're going to have them answer a bunch of questions about all red things, and that's going to be part 2, then we have this. And then if you set up part 3, and that's all your things that are going to be black, and then part 4 will be all the things that are white, and then you can tell them. So I would just need to create another section. So this is section, this one went in the wrong place because I had my cursor in the wrong place. So we're going to actually call this one black, this one red, and then we'll add one more section and we'll call that one white. I didn't capitalize that. We'll just deal with it. So now, if they answer red, they go to section 3, which is red. If they answer black, they go to section 2, which is black. And if they answer white, they go to section 4, which is white. Okay. So then they come in here, they select their question, and as soon as they do that, it jumps them to the correct section. So if I click red, I don't go to the immediate next section on my quiz. I will go to the red section and then answer whatever questions on here. Now, after this one, after black, once they've completed, if they select black and this is where they went, where do they go next? Obviously, if I have them complete black, I don't want them to also answer questions for red or white. So I'm going to have them submit the form. So all they will do is if they select black in the first one, they'll come in here, answer any questions I put in the black section, and then they will go to submit. And then I can do that for each of these. Go to submit form. So if it says go to next after red, the next section is white. But again, I don't want them to go to that section. I want them to go. And because white is the last section, there's nothing beyond there. The only place for them to go is to submit form. That's the end of the quiz. So, and then in each of these sections, I can put in whatever questions that I want here. So, which is better? Option 1, this is the white section. We're going to say clouds or milk. This is going to be a super fun quiz, as you can tell. And we'll go ahead and require that just for fun. And that'll be that. And then under red, add a question with, not white, which is better? Red gummy bears or red jelly beans? And then for fun, we're going to go ahead and require that. And then which is better? The magic 8-ball or Labradors? There we go. And we should require that one as too. So now anyone that is taking this, and here's a good place to do preview. They come in, my email address is pre-populated according to my Google account. It is required. Select the colors you love. I need to change the wording there, I just noticed. So I'm gonna pick white, hit next. My email is required. What? And hit next. And if I set that up correctly, it goes to the white section. So here's the section called white, which is better, clouds or milk. Boy, my gut's saying clouds, but I'm going to play devil's advocate and go with milk, and then hit submit. And then the end of the form is thank you for taking the time. You'll notice that this we had done earlier is in there correctly. If you have further questions, please email Olivia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the demo, which I will close. And then I will go back to the question page. Hey, did you notice the change at the top of the screen? Under responses, we now have one. We can see a response from Olivia and select the colors. She picked white. 100% of our respondents have picked white. If some of you were to fill this out and have different answers, it will give you this little pie chart here, and it's live. So as responses keep coming in, it will change, so you will constantly see. And then it tells you how many responses are for each, etc. You can look at the response. This is the summary for responses. You can look at the questions. So you can go by individual question in the page to see the actual responses to each question if you want to know, or you can look at responses by person. So you can look at all the people who have responded, and this will be a drop-down list of email addresses, or you can scroll through them back and forth by number, depending on how many are in there. So you can see that. You can also send them to a Google spreadsheet, which there's no need for me to do now because it's just me, etc. And you can get rid of responses in here. I will tell you that when I create a form, I do the preview and fill it out every single time I do it, just to make sure that it works exactly what I want. I usually do it multiple times, especially if I'm doing skip logic. I will would go back and hit that preview again and do it again. And the next time I'd pick red, and then last time I'd pick black, and make sure that it works every single time the way that I wanted it to. So I didn't just get lucky with just the white one works. And then I will usually have multiple responses in here for myself. And obviously I don't really want my own responses in there since I was just practicing. So I will delete them and leave it blank, but it is an option for you. All right, so that covers that. So let me go back to questions really quick, make sure I got everything in there. Black, white, red. Yes, I think I have covered everything. I know that was a lot of information that came at you really quickly, and I apologize for that, but hopefully you have enough information now that you could leave this webinar and go create your own Google form just like that you think you'd be confident enough to start your own Google form and even play with it and maybe do some skip logic or branch logic or do a quiz or whatever the case may be. If not, maybe I can help you by answering some questions. How does that sound? So I'm going to jump back over here to the Zoom. Actually, I take that back. I'm not jumping back to the Zoom just yet. Give me a second. I want to jump back here and see what I have missed. I did forget to show you tips and tricks. There were only two things that I found that I thought were really worthwhile as tips and tricks for Google Forms. One is keyboard shortcuts. I don't know if everyone in the world is as nerdy about keyboard shortcuts as I am, but I love them. And Google is super awesome about showing you individual keyboard shortcuts for their different programs. So for Google Forms, they have their own keyboard shortcuts help guide, which I have linked in the slide deck. So you can take a look and see if you're looking for a specific thing, PC, Mac, etc. So they have, if you're using a PC, you can come in here and see how to navigate using your keyboards. So if you like that sort of thing, as I do, I'm perfectly okay accepting my nerdiness. I am a nerd. I like keyboard shortcuts. So that is a way to look at that. And then the last one that I found is the template gallery. And there were a couple of ways to access this. I liked this one right here. So giving you a couple of different ways that you can set it up. So for professional, if you want to start with an existing template rather than build it from scratch. I just showed you how to build it from scratch and you saw how easy that was. I mean, we created a branch logic template with me explaining step by step in under an hour. So obviously they're not that complicated, and it's got, you know, it's pretty too. We've got form, we got backgrounds and different colors and all sorts of things. Like it would be fine to send this out, but some people would think it's easier just to do this. You could absolutely come in here and select. There's a bunch of different, including doing quizzes, a bunch of different templates, and you can do this and it'll pull it up, and then you just have to edit it to match what it is that you're looking for. So you can absolutely do that. Personally, this is just my opinion. I think it's more work to edit someone else's form than it is to just create your own, because you're usually changing everything, but now it's within their parameters. Whereas if you build it yourself, it's just the way you want it. So your call. A lot of people are very different about that and they prefer it a different way. So, but there is a link to that template gallery in there. And that brings us to questions and future Learnabouts. So the next scheduled Learnabout is Google Sites. So we're going to do the same sort of thing on how to create your own Google site. That's another one where there's a lot of information in a short period of time. So, but I have a lot more tips and tricks on that. So we're going to spend a little more time on that. I already mentioned we're going to take the summer off. So June, July, and August, there will not be a Learnabout. We'll be back in September. I only say tentative because I have a guest lecturer who's going to come and do Canva for us. And she has tentatively agreed to September 19th. But since that's still 5 months away right now, she wanted to get a little closer before she gave me that in stone. And I said that was fine. So, but Canva. So if you're not familiar with Canva, it's a great sort of to design your own graphics program. It is not in the Google family, but I've had specific questions from people saying, can you teach us Canva? And the answer is, I personally, no, I cannot. I do not use Canva, so I don't know how to do that. But I have a lot of friends in the library world, and I asked around and found someone who considers themselves an expert in Canva. And I took a webinar that she gave, and let me tell you, she knows her stuff. She is very savvy when it comes to Canva. So she's going to teach you all about it in September. And then I've had requests from people to do Google Calendar, which was honestly one that I had overlooked when I was creating the schedule, because to me, I was like, I don't really use it for a lot other than to check the date and what's on my schedule, but it does more than that. So let's learn more about it. So Google Calendar will be coming up in October, and then I'm still looking to fill November and December. So if you have a suggestion or something you want to learn, send me an email. I would be happy to do that for you. Metrolibraries.net events and programs is where you can register for Google Sites, and also where you can find this link here, the YouTube link to past recordings. But again, you have access to this slide deck. You can go to the website. There are lots of ways to find that information. And now we are on to questions. Boom. Let's head over to Zoom. And Katie put, here is a link to the recordings on YouTube. Thank you, Katie. Katie Rose, it looks like your name is. Katie Rose, thank you so much. And she also linked the slide deck in the chat as well. Thank you very much. I'm scrolling back up to see if there's anything else. Miranda, I assume it's easy to copy a form. If you need to make one change for, say, a new form, it will copy all the settings and questions over, but no responses. Yes, Miranda, great question. And yes, it does. It is very, very easy to copy a form. Boop. I'm going to come back in here to, I don't know how I got away from where my actual form was. There we go. So in this link here, the vertical 3 dots, You can click make a copy. When you do that, the first thing it wants you to do is rename it because they cannot have the same. So it suggests copy of. I've never seen anyone who likes copy of as a name. So we'll just say, going to be super clever and just flip it around and call this one Learnabout Demo. And then hit make a copy. And then you'll notice it comes over here to the brand new page. And you can see that the skip logic is all in place. The questions are required as they were on the previous form, but there are no responses in here. So it just takes out the response information, gives it exactly as it was completed, and then you can go in and edit as you need. So you can see I'm in the editing mode still so that I can come in and I can change this if I don't want them to have to require these, etc. You can change that information. So great question, Miranda. And I see that we have a question in the Q&A as well. What does it look like in the spreadsheet? Ruth wants to know. Good question, Ruth. I can show you. So in this one, demo for Learnabout, responses, there's only the one response, but I'm going to go ahead and click that create spreadsheet. Create a new spreadsheet. You can give it a name, hit create. You can also transfer it into an existing spreadsheet. So if you keep all of your survey results in one giant spreadsheet for years and years and years, you can. Otherwise, here's what it looks like. It gives you a column for each of the questions on your form, gives you a timestamp of when it was answered, there's the email address, and then the answer for each of the questions. Since I did white and I don't have the other answers in there. So then it would obviously populate this, and these spreadsheets are also live. So if somebody were in there doing this right now, as soon as they finished, their answer would appear. So if you have the spreadsheet open, you can actually watch as the answers appear on there. I don't know why anyone would want to do that. That sounds tedious, but if you did want to do it, you certainly could. All righty, I'm going to head back over here. Are there any further questions? We have 3 minutes remaining. If anyone has a question, they are welcome to type those in the chat now. I'm happy to answer any final questions. Other than that, you can see my email address here again on the screen, olivia@metronet.lib.mn.us. And oh my goodness, I forgot to change that bit.ly link right there. My, oh my, that's where you'll find my presentation about the slide decks if you're curious about that. And I think slides is the only presentation that is not yet linked on the YouTube channel. And that is because I did the thing where I forgot to hit record. So I actually have to go in and redo the presentation for slides without an audience because I forgot to record it. So whoops, it's a lesson learned. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now. I'm seeing some thank yous in there. We are at 4:58 and I am complete. If there are any questions, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. Please ask them. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate you guys showing up. I hope you learned something.